Tension exploded behind palace walls when Queen Camilla reportedly yelled at Princess Catherine during a private royal event. Witnesses were stunned, but what shocked everyone more was Princess Anne's unexpected response. A quiet, powerful stand that turned the tide. What really happened inside the palace? The truth is louder than ever. The palace tension explodes. A royal confrontation. It happened behind closed doors, during what was meant to be a routine royal reception. No cameras, no press, just the inner circle of senior royals gathered inside the white drawing room.
But what unfolded that day shocked even those used to palace drama.
According to multiple eyewitnesses, a sudden verbal outburst cut through the elegant stillness of the room. Queen Camilla, in a rare public loss of composure, turned toward Princess Catherine and raised her voice, sharp, cold, and laced with hostility. The words weren't fully caught, but her tone said enough. It wasn't frustration, it was fury, said one staffer positioned near the doorway. Catherine's face froze. She didn't speak. Her shoulders tensed, her posture stiffened, yet she remained still. Those watching described her as looking stunned, cornered, and deeply hurt. And then, the whole room fell silent. The guests, including senior aides and members of the extended royal family, stopped mid-conversation. Not a word was spoken for nearly 30 seconds, a silence so heavy that even the sound of glasses clinking seemed loud. Nobody stepped in. No one dared. What made it worse was the setting. This wasn't a family dispute behind private walls. This happened during official royal preparations, just days before a major public appearance. The Queen Consort publicly confronting the future Queen of England in front of staff was almost unthinkable. But the damage was done. You could feel the tension crawl across the room, one staff member later said. It wasn't a spat. It was a rupture. And in that stillness, Catherine made her move. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. Instead, she quietly turned and left the room, saying nothing. Her exit, calm and composed, only highlighted the contrast between her dignity and the outburst she had just endured. What many didn't realize at the time was that this wasn't a one-off moment. It had been building for months, but in that instant, the mask slipped, and someone else noticed it too. Standing silently across the room, Princess Anne didn't flinch. She didn't interfere, but her sharp eyes never left the scene. That night, she would break her silence. And when she did, the entire narrative inside the palace would shift. What triggered Camilla? The real reason behind the outburst. Camilla's sudden rage was something deeper, something insiders say had been simmering for a long time, and on that day, it finally boiled over. The immediate trigger? Protocol. Princess Catherine had reportedly made private suggestions regarding the public roles of her children, particularly Prince George and Princess Charlotte, at an upcoming charity event tied to next month's Windsor Trust presentation. These suggestions were relayed through her office to the planning team. But Camilla wasn't pleased. She allegedly saw it as a challenge to her own position. She thought Catherine was acting like she was already queen, a palace insider claimed. Tensions rose fast. Sources close to the situation said Camilla accused Catherine of overstepping her boundaries and behaving as if she was already running the palace. That accusation hit hard. Catherine, known for her disciplined approach to royal tradition, had never been directly confronted like this before. One aide, who overheard part of the exchange, quoted Camilla's exact words, "You don't make the rules here." And that was the moment everything cracked. But this wasn't the first sign of friction between the two. Over the past year, palace staff had noticed Camilla becoming increasingly unsettled by Catherine's rising popularity. Public polls showed Catherine consistently ranking as the most admired royal, especially among younger generations. Her every move, appearance, and speech garnered global media attention, while Camilla remained a more polarizing figure. Camilla reportedly saw this as more than a popularity contest. According to insiders, she believed Catherine was deliberately positioning herself as the modern face of the monarchy. Too polished, too perfect, too adored. And to Camilla, that wasn't just inconvenient. It was threatening. Her comments that day weren't random. They were the result of months of quiet resentment, building behind the scenes. That outburst in the drawing room? It wasn't a misstep. It was a message. But what Camilla didn't expect was the fallout. Because while Catherine stayed silent, another voice was about to rise. One Camilla couldn't ignore. Princess Anne. And her words would carry weight no one expected. Catherine's reaction. Grace under fire. After Camilla's sharp and public outburst, all eyes were on Princess Catherine. But what followed wasn't what anyone expected. There was no argument, no return fire, no emotional breakdown. Catherine simply stood still. One witness described her expression as frozen, not scared, but controlled, like she refused to let her face betray her. She didn't say a word. She didn't try to defend herself. She turned slowly, nodded once to the closest aide, and walked out of the white drawing room, leaving behind an atmosphere so tense it could have shattered glass. The silence that followed was almost more powerful than any response she could have given. One senior staff member later said, "Her dignity in that moment? It shut down the room harder than a shouting match ever could." But behind the calm surface, the moment had clearly left its mark. When she returned to her private quarters shortly after, aides noted her eyes were glassy, as if holding back tears. Yet she kept moving, completing the rest of her day's schedule without delay, refusing to let the incident interfere with her official responsibilities. No complaints were made, no reports filed. Not even Prince William, who had been briefed later that evening, released a statement. The silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Behind palace walls, there's a rule: whoever speaks first loses control. Catherine knew that. But even in her silence, word had already begun to spread. Staff talked. Eyewitnesses whispered. And within a few hours, the story had already passed through at least 3 departments. By midnight, the entire senior royal circle had heard what happened, but only one person decided to act. Not with headlines, not with gossip. With a quiet knock on Catherine's door. And that person was Princess Anne. Anne Sana steps in. The silent watcher speaks. Princess Anne, known for her fierce independence and sharp sense of duty, is rarely seen engaging in palace drama. But on that night, she broke the pattern. She had witnessed the entire confrontation between Camilla and Catherine from across the room. She hadn't intervened then, but she hadn't looked away either. According to palace insiders, Anne arrived at Catherine's private sitting room shortly after 10 p.m. No guards, no entourage, just her. She entered without formality, sat beside Catherine, and reportedly said one line: "You did nothing wrong. Don't let anyone shake you." For Catherine, it was unexpected. Anne isn't known for emotional support. She's reserved, pragmatic, but in that moment, her presence meant everything. Anne didn't stay long. No lectures, no gossip, just quiet solidarity. But that gesture carried more power than any public statement could have. Because when Anne speaks, people listen, and when she takes sides, that sends a signal. By the next morning, those closest to the inner circle began to whisper that Princess Anne had sided with Catherine. For staff who were unsure where to stand, that changed everything. One veteran royal advisor said, Anne backing Catherine meant it wasn't just a family disagreement anymore. It became a matter of principle. And make no mistake, Anne's quiet support wasn't just about defending Catherine. It was about preserving the dignity of the monarchy, which Camilla's outburst had openly threatened. Because if future queens are being yelled at in front of witnesses, what message does that send? Anne wasn't going to let that slide. And neither would the rest of the palace, once they realized who had quietly taken a side. History of friction: Camilla versus Catherine. The clash between Queen Camilla and Princess Catherine didn't come out of nowhere. Insiders say it's been simmering quietly for years, hidden behind formal smiles and public unity. But behind the scenes, the two women had very different roles and visions. From the beginning, Camilla reportedly viewed Catherine's rise with suspicion. As early as 2011, shortly after William and Catherine's wedding, Camilla was said to have warned King Charles, "She's too perfect. Watch how fast they crown her in the press." At the time, many dismissed it as insecurity. But as Catherine's popularity soared, Camilla's concern turned into quiet resentment. By 2015, Catherine was being hailed as the new face of the monarchy, praised for her grace, her connection to the public, and her strong bond with Queen Elizabeth II. Meanwhile, Camilla remained a more controversial figure, still dealing with her complicated public image stemming from the Diana years. One palace insider shared, "Camilla always felt like she had to fight for acceptance. Catherine? She walked in and was embraced from day one." And it wasn't just about media attention. Over the past decade, Catherine has been increasingly involved in policy-focused charity work, mental health initiatives, and youth programs, all of which received international praise. Camilla, by contrast, kept to a smaller portfolio and was often overshadowed. By 2022, polling confirmed the gap. Catherine ranked as the second most popular royal, just behind the late Queen. Camilla? She struggled to even enter the top 5. These public perceptions didn't just stay in newspapers, they shaped conversations inside the palace. Staff loyalty began to split. Some senior aides noticed that when Catherine entered a room, staff stood straighter. Others said Camilla was more demanding, less warm. One longtime housekeeper claimed, "With Catherine, people smile. With Camilla, they watch their backs." And the Queen's passing only widened the divide. When Queen Elizabeth II died in 2022, the monarchy transitioned into a more fragile, scrutinized phase. Suddenly, the spotlight intensified, and Camilla expected deference, not just from staff, but from Catherine as well. But Catherine wasn't overstepping. She was simply rising, naturally, gracefully, and with the public firmly behind her. The royal outburst wasn't an isolated event. It was a breaking point. And what made it even more complicated was that King Charles was now caught in the middle, as both a husband and a father. What he did next would send shockwaves through the entire senior circle. Charles caught in the middle, husband versus father. The confrontation had already spread throughout the palace. King Charles was informed just hours after the incident, and the report left him deeply shaken. He hadn't witnessed it himself, but multiple eyewitnesses had described the scene in full detail. Camilla yelling, Catherine silently walking out, and Princess Anne staying unusually quiet. By midnight, Charles had requested a private meeting with Camilla. It was held in the king's private drawing room with no aides present. According to royal insiders, it did not go well. Charles reportedly asked one thing: "Please apologize. Set this right before it spreads further." But Camilla refused. She stood by her actions, insisting that Catherine had been testing limits and needed to be reminded of her place. "She thinks she runs this palace," Camilla reportedly said. That statement hit hard. Charles, torn between the two most important women in his life, was visibly distressed. What followed, according to multiple sources, was a rare emotional moment. He left the room quietly, walked alone to the palace chapel, and stayed inside for nearly 40 minutes. One staff member who happened to be nearby shared, "He was crying, not loudly, but you could see it. I've never seen him like that before." This wasn't just about an argument. It was about the fragility of the royal household. Charles had spent decades rebuilding trust in the monarchy. Now, with one outburst, the unity of the next generation, William and Catherine, was under public and private attack. Some advisors urged him to issue a statement clarifying the situation. Others suggested asking Camilla to temporarily step back from public duties. But Charles hesitated. He was trapped between loyalty and legacy. He loved Camilla. She had been his partner through scandal and recovery. But Catherine represented the future, the image of stability and grace the public had already embraced. And now that Princess Anne had backed Catherine, the balance had shifted. Within days, Charles would be forced to choose a side, and the palace would never be the same again. The staff reaction. Loyalty lines are drawn. Inside the palace, the fallout from Camilla's outburst didn't stop with senior royals. It spread quickly through the walls, where the real power of perception lives. The staff, people who had served under Queen Elizabeth, worked with Charles, assisted both Camilla and Catherine, suddenly found themselves in a quiet standoff. Divided, watching, whispering. Some long-serving members of Camilla's team defended her behavior, blaming pressure, stress, and miscommunication. One aide said, "She's under constant scrutiny. Anyone would snap eventually." But those who worked closely with Princess Catherine were unforgiving. "She's never raised her voice, not once, even when things go wrong," said a household employee who had helped coordinate Catherine's recent charity tours. "She's firm, but she's kind." Camilla's outburst wasn't pressure, it was envy. Behind the scenes, Catherine's staff described her reaction as graceful and heartbreaking. She didn't cry in front of them. She simply carried on with her day, but in a way that said everything. Quiet, focused, but changed. One member of the kitchen team said, "Her smile was there, but her eyes weren't." That's when we knew something broke inside. As word of Princess Anne's private visit spread, lines started to harden. Anne was respected by everyone, from guards to footmen to senior advisors. Her decision to personally check on Catherine and the quote she reportedly said, "Don't let anyone shake you," carried weight. It was a quiet endorsement, but it meant a lot. Many now saw Anne as taking a moral position, not just a personal one. And inside the palace, that kind of move doesn't go unnoticed. It shifts loyalty. It signals who's protecting the crown and who might be tearing it down. After Anne backed Catherine, you could feel it, one source said. People started treating Camilla's office differently. Not hostile, but cold. The atmosphere turned icy. Staff kept conversations short. There were fewer smiles in the hallway. Aides once seen laughing together now avoided eye contact. Even senior protocol officers were rumored to be reassessing their assignments, positioning themselves quietly closer to William and Catherine. But while the palace was freezing over inside, on the outside, things looked strangely calm. Too calm. Because just as the whispers grew louder, the press suddenly went quiet. Media blackout attempt. The palace tries to bury it. The palace communications team moved faster than ever. Within 24 hours of the incident, official press channels were locked down. No statements, no confirmations, not even a polite denial. And that silence wasn't by accident. According to sources close to the royal media desk, Camilla's office requested an internal freeze, a soft gag order meant to contain the incident before it could go public.
But it was too late.
By then, at least 3 media insiders had already received leaks from palace staff. A version of the story, although watered down, began to circulate through whispers in the tabloid world. Rather than deny it, the palace tried to smother it with distraction. Within 2 days, Camilla appeared at a charity photo op, smiling alongside celebrity guests. The coverage focused on her outfit, her speech, her strength in showing up despite stress. But royal watchers noticed something was off. For one, Princess Catherine was missing. She had quietly pulled out of a scheduled appearance with no explanation. Her absence was brushed aside as a scheduling change, but fans online weren't buying it. "Catherine's never missed that event. Something's going on," wrote one user, whose comment quickly gained over 10,000 likes on social media. Royal-themed forums lit up. Analysts compared recent footage. Camilla's strained smile, Catherine's silence, Anne's sudden closeness to the Waleses. Threads popped up with titles like, "Is there trouble behind palace doors?" "Where is Catherine, and why won't anyone talk about it?" The media couldn't ignore the buzz forever. One royal correspondent, known for being palace-friendly, dropped a vague line during a live segment. "There are rumors of tension between senior royal women. I'm told it's being managed." That single sentence sent the speculation into overdrive.
Suddenly, every glance, every missing name from a guest list, every photo where Camilla stood alone was being scrutinized.
The palace may have tried to control the fire, but instead, they made it burn brighter in the shadows. And now, with Catherine silent, Anne standing firm, and the public watching, Camilla's position was growing more fragile by the hour. But the moment that would truly expose the truth wasn't coming from the press. It was coming from the people themselves. And what they did next would change the entire narrative. Public backlash, sympathy for Catherine, doubt for Camilla. Despite the palace's effort to keep things buried, the truth had already started leaking, and by the time Princess Catherine missed her next engagement, the public had caught on. It began with whispers in royal forums, but soon it hit mainstream. "Where is Catherine?" became a trending question on UK Twitter, and the hashtag #WeStandWithFab. Catherine began spreading rapidly. Royal fans, journalists, and even neutral followers began piecing together the timeline. Camilla's sudden public photo op, Catherine's absence, and Princess Anne's rare unannounced appearance at Kensington Palace. None of it added up, and people were talking. Royal watchers pointed out that Catherine had never missed that annual charity gala, an event she'd attended for 8 consecutive years. There was no explanation from her team, just silence. Then came the damning contrast. Camilla's glowing coverage, positioned as a strong, stable queen consort under pressure, while Catherine was quietly disappearing. One viral post read, "Funny how Camilla suddenly gets press coverage as the pillar of strength while Catherine vanishes and no one dares ask why. The post received over 120,000 likes, sparking a flood of comments demanding transparency from the palace. Speculation turned into support. Videos of Catherine working with children, laughing with veterans, comforting grieving families began to recirculate. People called her the true heart of the monarchy. Meanwhile, Camilla's headlines began turning sour. Public sentiment flipped. Comments under her recent charity appearance were filled with skepticism.
Where's Catherine? Notice how quiet she's being while Camilla's everywhere.
If the queen yells at the future queen, what does that say about her? Camilla's past, still fragile in the eyes of many, came roaring back. Comparisons to Princess Diana's treatment reignited, and old interviews were reposted by the public. One particular clip of Diana saying, "There were 3 of us in this marriage," resurfaced, garnering millions of views in 24 hours. Suddenly, Camilla wasn't just in a PR problem. She was in a full-blown credibility crisis. And yet, through it all, Catherine said nothing. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was working. Because the louder the world became, the more powerful her composure seemed. And then, Princess Anne stepped into the light. Anne breaks her silence, a rare public signal. In the world of royalty, words are rarely needed. Sometimes, all it takes is a gesture. Just 3 days after the public backlash exploded, Princess Anne and Princess Catherine made a surprise joint appearance at a Veterans Memorial in Portsmouth. It wasn't a glamorous event. No press conference, no palace announcement, but every camera was already watching. As they walked side by side past the memorial wreaths, there was a moment that would go viral within hours. Anne paused, turned toward Catherine, and placed a firm hand on her shoulder. Her face was steady, her grip deliberate. In that second, everything shifted. Lip readers caught the brief exchange. Anne said, "They won't shake you. You're the future." Those 6 words set the internet on fire. Princess. Anne trended globally. Clips of the moment were played on every major outlet, from BBC to Sky News to CNN. Even former critics of the monarchy admitted, this was powerful. The public now had their answer. Anne, the royal known for staying out of the spotlight, had just taken a side, publicly. And it wasn't just personal support. It was symbolic. A senior royal, the daughter of the late queen, was backing the next generation over the current one. That gesture spoke louder than any statement, said one royal historian. Anne gave the crown her verdict. Within days, palace insiders confirmed that Catherine had received personal messages of support from multiple senior aides, even those once aligned with Camilla. Camilla, meanwhile, canceled 2 appearances, citing exhaustion, but few believed it. Behind palace walls, the power had shifted. Catherine was no longer just the future queen. She was the people's queen in waiting. Anne, once the silent observer, was now the shield behind her. And the monarchy? It had just been reminded who the public truly trusts. Because when the storm passed and the noise faded, one image remained. 2 women, standing together. One past, one future, unshaken. As the dust settled, public support rallied behind Catherine, while Camilla's image took a hit. But it was Princess Anne's rare public gesture that sealed the moment, choosing loyalty, truth, and fear the future. One confrontation changed everything. And now the royal spotlight shines brighter than ever on the next queen in waiting.